If a computer or AI can automate my job, then what is the value of my life?
I need to work faster, cheaper, and better.
It makes everyone feel quite inhuman. You want to believe that you're worth more than that. Many of us sometimes drift into jobs because we studied something that we thought was nice or someone told you that's good for you. I think what's gone amiss is what are we all working so hard for? I'm Mark Wee, architect, artist, life design coach, co-founder and the executive director of the Designing Your Life Institute, which I co-founded with Bill Burnett, who started the Life Design Lab and was the co-author of that famous book that many people know about.
What is designing your life?
We get them to actually do these wonderful... It gives people the permission to dream.
Why should anyone care?
If you don't care, other people will shape your own life. Essentially, I think we need to ask ourselves...
Hi Mark, welcome to Be Curious. I think maybe to kind of start off in that context of job security and opportunities are a big concern for people today. How did we kind of get to this space?
Well, I mean, we get to interact with a lot of people at the Designing Your Life Institute, right? What is quite clear is that I guess at different age groups, everyone's having their own form of anxieties. One obviously would be around the kind of mid-career segment, somehow concerned that, they may be replaced. And this is already on the backdrop of a work culture where people are really, I think in 2021, and I just heard most recently in 2024, right? We've showed up as like the kind of world's kind of unhappiest workforce. We've, driven with a lot of kind of high burnout. So I think it's just that climate has just made people very tired and anxious. And this has just caused us a lot of questions, right? What do I do? And I think the other thing also with AI is just will kind of increase that question of then if a computer or AI can automate my job, then what is the value of my life, right? And I think that kind of makes people dig deep into what am I here for, what my purpose is, what are my skills and gifts, and how can that, and I'm sure how can that be expressed in a way that's impactful to the world.
Yeah. Well, businesses are constantly, coming out to the employees, the workers to say, hey, I need you to work faster, I need you to work, cheaper and better. Really in the interest of, productivity.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts?
I mean, you always hear this thing, right? We have to increase productivity, right? And I think what that means often is like, it just means that as a worker, you have to do more. What that means is you probably have to earn more per head. That's how your employee sizes you. But ultimately, that's also makes everyone feel quite inhuman, right? Because you want to believe that you're worth more than that, right? And then you always hear every year we're trying to increase our productivity. But I think what's gone amiss is what are we all working so hard for? And I think this question about purpose, what motivates, what drives you, how what you're doing can be aligned with hopefully something that you either believe in or you see that you can actually be using your skills to be able to kind of actually make a meaningful contribution to. I think those things need to be looked into deeper to connect people ultimately into their work or reframe things so that they can really kind of give their best and feel also kind of acknowledged for it.
Yeah. Wanted to get, I think, your own story as well also. Did you ever face burnout yourself?
I've always admittedly tried to be true to what I do, right? But I think where I did feel burnout was I joined the public service sort of mid-career, right? In some ways, you're joining a very large organization, right? It's technically about 150,000 employees, and it was kind of like unrelenting. I mean, and I think in the first couple of months, I realized I'd never worked so hard before. And, I think in those situations, you're just kind of like just keeping up. And I think you really only start to feel whether you have some burnout or you're some really tired when you kind of step off that. And I think I felt that actually after I left. I was still very grateful. I mean, I looked at it as really one season of my life where, you could really kind of just do and just make impact in a way that no one else could. It made me wonder, is that sort of the general culture of work here? And if it's so, then even people who are well-meaning and really desire to do good work, they could just get really kind of tired. And this is actually in a society where many of us sometimes drift into jobs because, we studied something that we thought was nice, or someone told you that's good for you. But I think as you get older, after a while, you want to be able to make your time meaningful.
How do we help people in Singapore who's constantly on this drift and move, right? To just take that moment to stop.
If we instituted mandatory sabbaticals for everyone, and I think I just want to say that it means for anyone who is in whatever position, who steps into the public service or other organizations, who wants to do good work. Ultimately, right, even people just need rest. We talk a lot about how we want to be an innovation economy. We want to kind of create new ideas. They've never come out of just a lot of intense more and more work. They've come actually out of rest, out of just sort of like play. And I feel somehow that in where we want to go forward, the answer may lie actually in maybe doing a little bit less and play and more white space than just doing more.
I felt it too when I kind of took on the sabbatical, because you suddenly realize that you've taken kind of like that pause. Yeah. What did that stop and that pause meant for you?
After I left Design Singapore, my family went on a kind of 3-week vacation. One thing I realized was it took you the first week to just kind of wind down, right? Just like you're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about... Then the second week, you're kind of easing into it. And the third week, you're starting to kind of rest and you're starting to enjoy. And it kind of gave me a sort of insight into actually even the human body, and how actually rest is so important to just kind of bring you to a place where you can start to reflect. I started to reflect and have more clarity about even the work I want to do, and the work I can do best, and the work I should avoid. And this came from being able to just pen down and kind of reflect on, okay, my kind of past work experience, where were the areas that really kind of mattered, and which areas, on hindsight, I realized, it wasn't my best self. And the other thing that rest has given me has allowed me to experiment more. So I've been playing with a lot more AI tools, to be honest, and I'm starting to bring that now into some of my other kind of advisory work. But I realized as well, with the world changing so quickly, if I didn't have the time to actually try some of these new things, I could just be one day sort of sidelined by the world just changing overnight, and I'm just like, I was just in meetings all day, right? So I feel all the more when you think about how the world's accelerating so quickly, that perhaps the irony is that we need a bit more space to actually be able to think, reflect, try new things, and start to recalibrate, or maybe give space to reinvent.
One thing that I realized with the sabbatical, and when you're not attached to, I think, the current job or work, it's more freeing, because I feel like that's where you kind of like, hey, your job's no longer your identity. And in that sense, you're able to ask the right questions. Yeah. The truth kind of like comes out.
I can imagine how a lot of people, because their jobs are so much tied to their identity, without it, they don't know who they are. And all the more, I think it was important for you to know who you are. Because if you thought that the value of yourself was because of what everyone told you how great you were, or gave you deferred respect because of whatever position you had, then you're sorely mistaken. So I think knowing who you are is very important. In some ways, it kind of gives you that freedom. And then that freedom is then for you to ask yourself, based on who you are, then what else is there for you in this world? We all have multiple lives in ourselves. And, and life has seasons. And when one door closes, I think you should think about, then you should look ahead with an excitement to think about what else is there for me next, right? And I feel that if everyone could take that and look at that, it could be filled with so much more joy and anticipation rather than kind of dread,
You've taken design thinking, the concept there, and applied it to, our lives. And that that came about, I think, the idea around designing your life. I want to ask you, what is designing your life?
When I designed Singapore, I met my partner Bill. 18 years ago, he started the Life Design Lab with Dave Evans. And it first came from this premise when they realized that their students at Stanford didn't really know what to do after graduation. But if you could apply design thinking to it, it could really work. Simply because it's about first having empathy for yourself and having empathy for the world. And ultimately, it's really to get people here to be creatively confident again, and to be able to look at the world with maybe a growth mindset. Give people some sort of structure to think and try to find and maybe discover what their vocation or how they could intentionally design a much more sustainable but also kind of meaningful, engaging kind of life for themselves. It's taken us by surprise. I mean, the response has been kind of phenomenal. We just launched a program called Designing Your Life, the Next Chapter, with Workforce Singapore and Republic Polytechnic, and anyone above 50 years old can take it for free. And we're rolling out other programs as well for different age groups. But it's just been really meaningful as a designer to be able to see that this actually really, these mindsets that we have as designers and creatives could be so useful in this day and age for people to actually adapt, and use for their own lives.
I think in the context of what we talked about, people being lost and trying to find meaning and purpose in life, I want to ask, why should anyone care?
Well, if you don't care, it's so easy to drift in life. Other people will shape your own life, right? We have parents out of good intentions who want to tell you what to do. We have society who will tell you what to do. I talk to people who are taking PhDs, and the reason why they're there is because some professor told them they'll be good at it, right? But essentially, I think we need to ask ourselves, what is important to ourselves? And what does that mean, right? What does meaningful work mean? What is the meaning of life for ourselves? Growing up, what was our story, right? And we can understand that, and we could, in some ways, I hate to use this word, be our best selves or somehow be authentic, right? Usually we don't really ask ourselves that. If we allow yourself to understand what that is, it allows you to go a much further and longer way.
Is this what you call empathy for yourself?
Yeah, there's always this question. People ask you, what is your passion? And I think there's a research done at Stanford where they actually went to study this precise question about passion. And they found out, interestingly, is that 8 out of 10 people, when asked that question, have no passion, right? Most people have interests, but not everyone has passion, right? But the truth is, as you probably can identify, we all have interests. And if you pursue some of these interests and you realize you can be quite good at it with more time, it may develop into a passion. And the interesting other side fact is people ask them, what about the 2 out of 10 that actually say they have passion? And apparently studies have shown is that the 2 out of 10 tend to be people who are in the creative arts. I can't help but dance. I want to sing. I need to get on the stage and act. And we usually tell them that these are stupid jobs, right? But they just can't help themselves, right? I think it's really about trying to find out being curious about the world and seeing what sticks.
My passion was in films. So
yeah, and how did you know that?
Creative side, just playing the camera, right? And then you're like, I love shooting. I love the movies.
Yeah, but this idea of linear planning your career, I don't know, I think you really limit yourself.
Going back to life design, how do you think it helps, and benefits people?
You could say that perhaps it would be particularly useful for people in transitions when they're trying to make decisions. When people feel that, they may need to reinvent themselves and need some form of structure. And this provides a structure for them to actually kind of articulate and write down build their own compass. We get them to actually do these wonderful, what we call Odyssey plans, where you walk away with 3 sort of like imagined lives for yourselves, right? In these Odyssey plans, we get people to articulate what a 5-year journey would look like if based on the story they told themselves today. We ask them to do one based on if whatever you're doing today was just taken up by AI and you couldn't do it anymore, right? What would you do? And then the wild card, we get people to kind of dream if money wasn't an issue or what people thought about you wasn't an issue, what you really want to do. And it allows people to kind of really ask themselves, was there something I've always sort of just not allowed myself that I have interest in? It gives people the permission to dream. And from there, we encourage people to kind of take a prototyping approach toward just trying new things and exploring forward.
Have you seen, I guess, Designing Your Life used also preemptively, before a transition happens to help people, I think, plan, take that stop.
I think absolutely. I mean, it's very useful in even just helping people reframe why they work. You need to design in for health, love / relationships or play.
I want to ask, how can someone do that? Design your life.
As in, do you want me to like demo you?
Sure.
So Derek, what do you think the meaning of life is to you?
I spent a lot of my life view as the work that I was doing. I kind of like shelf a lot of who I was or the people around me aside. But as I come into this season, I realized it's so important to spend time on self.
Yes.
I could see that, literally help me grow relationships better and redefine, I think, that having that clarity of work.
So would you say that life for you is about harmony and some sort of balance?
Yes.
Okay. What about work? Beyond a paycheck, what do you believe work is for?
Work is, I think, a vehicle for me to move a certain mission or certain vision I have, right? It's not everything of me inside, right? But it's really just one thing I could use to move the idea I have. So work's changed for me.
So for you, good work is impactful work? Is it work that would sort of make an impact on society in some way?
I guess that was what I saw with storytelling. I saw how that has impacted lives. I guess that is a work that I would still love to do. Different creators now, different stories, but I think there's impact. I think it's transformational for others.
Yeah. And then if you think back, I mean, this is really around a personal reflection. If you think back, was there a moment where you actually felt fully alive in at work or something, or in your life? What was that like?
One big aha was when I was a kid, right? Where you've got ideas in your head, but through the power of creation, right? Back then, it's like either you draw, you've got camera, digital camera, and then pirated software, so you to kind of put things together.
I can totally remember that. Yes.
As a kid, you're like, wow, this is in my head. My parents, my friends, you can see what's in my head.
Okay.
I think that is empowering. That's powerful.
So an aha moment for you was the ability to actually make stories.
To make stories and empowered by technology. At that point in time, you've got tools. Film was expensive, but hey, you've got digital video and pirated software. So as a kid, you're like, I could run a TV station.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question I have is there something that you've always wanted to do, but you haven't tried yet?
I've always been behind the camera.
Okay.
Right. Now I'm nervous and being
love
around the camera here.
I love it.
But I guess I think putting myself, this discomfort of just being in front of the camera and just trying to put a community together.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something different.
Okay. So in a way, what you've kind of always feared, but you're kind of trying now.
Yeah.
And why is it so important for you to try to do this?
I think going back to that realization of, I think, purpose and what my definition of work is, right? I have seen how I've built systems to impact and benefit industries and audiences alike. And I thought I can do it again in just a different kind of context that is aligned with the meaning of life now, which is to find that, I think, balance, just simply because I've gone through that stage and I had that helping hand. Can I now build a system to help others? So I think it's kind of like the jigsaw puzzle coming a bit together. Yeah.
So what I would see is that this thing that you've always been curious and you kind of somehow obviously connect with people's stories, and this is you kind of taking some degree of a step of faith, but in some ways you're kind of prototyping, right?
Yes.
Your way forward, where you're kind of taking these small steps, making yourself uncomfortable, but in some ways allowing yourself to tell your story. And I just see that as that's if you ask me, that's kind of like design thinking, right? It's basically right. You're prototyping, you're testing, you're probably going to tweak it, and somehow, but in that sort of wayfinding path, I believe somehow you're going to connect into something that you've been looking for. And the reality is that I've talked to so many amazing people who've done amazing things in their lives. And whenever I find out the backstories, they always sort of just were in some ways led by their heart.
I've always thought that, moving faster, working harder means to be productive. But I did realize, I think in that process, ironically, slowing down, it's more productive than constantly spending your time, I think, on that work that you need to do.
Yeah. You're probably learning on the spot, right? Every day.
I am.
Are you kind of freaking out?
All the time. And to be honest, I think the questions you asked me, I realize there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I don't think I could have, be here today answering those questions without having to slow down. And I guess in part this journey, selfishly, is for me to do that inner work more with guests like yourselves.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people out there hopefully can resonate and connect with what you're saying. I think a lot of people go through life also sometimes feeling in a certain way and perhaps not feeling that there are people that can understand them. And just thanks for doing the podcast.
Thank you, Mark, for the conversation today. To the viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us. Design your life, doesn't mean you have to quit your job, today. I think take that intentional step, the small step to understand who you are, align it with what you do. Start with sharing your story. I think start with taking that one action. I've started that, with this podcast, this conversation that I'm having. With that, the insights in the conversation today, I'm compiling that. I'm going to put it in a PDF so that you can download it in the links provided below. We'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts as well, also around what designing your life means. So drop it in the comments as well. Hit the subscribe button so you can stay tuned to more conversations like this. Thank you so much.